Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Onlline. Now, there is someone working with a chainsaw a little bit down the road, so I hope you guys don't get too much background noise. But other than that, it is FanFest, so it's really a great weekend for EVE Onlline. Now, I don't assume a lot of people that watch EVE Talk will be missing out on EVE FanFest, but if you haven't watched any of it yet, the easiest way I found so far to pick up the streams, at the moment they don't stay up on Twitch that long, but if you go to twitch.tv/ccp/profile, that's where you can rewatch all of those streams. So if you've missed anything, you can always go back there. But I personally found really interesting was of course the EVE keynote, especially CCP Quant's part with all the assets and the ISK that's actually in the entire game. That was really interesting. And of course now we have the Tashmir Khan who have won for the coronation. So we now have an empress from Tashmir Khan. I need to do a little bit of research on what that might mean for the Amar Empire in the near future, since that's where I'm playing at the moment. But yeah, really cool stuff coming from FanFest at the moment. I should also mention, I think, the talk from Max Singularity. He works for NASA. That was just an amazing talk, with so much energy there. That was really great. And what I'm looking forward to most is the structure talk, because I do plan, of course, to make a citadel. I plan to, after that, go for a large citadel. And the one thing that I'm a little bit nebulous about at the moment is actually the asset safety system. And I'm hoping that they'll give all the information on that in the structure talk, which actually should be today. So yeah, good times in EVE Onlline, and of course the expansion is coming next week if all goes well. We are here for the market, of course, a little bit of a longer introduction, but as always, let's start up with plex here at 2 minutes 15. And plex up just a little bit, 1,022 million. It was 21 when I was checking for the ticker, but you can see here at the price history that we basically bounced off of 1 billion, data point just below that. That's not really good news, but it looks to me like the market is very hesitant to drop plexes below 1 billion ISK. Will it start to go back up? Maybe after FanFest and when the expansion hits, with people coming back, demand picking up, plex might come back in a strong way. But if this is a seasonal adjustment, then the bottom could be quite a little bit later than this. Historically speaking, this is off by a few months, but what always used to happen is we had a winter expansion somewhere around December, we would peak somewhere around that, and then we would have a pullback from the plex price, a significant one, with then a bottom May, June, something like that. Then it would just meander about a little bit throughout the summer and then pick back up as the next winter expansion would close up. Of course, it's never in a straight line, right? The summer expansions had some impact and stuff like that as well. But the real question is, do you think that 1 billion will be the bottom, yes or no? If you think so, then I really do think that picking up a few plex at the moment would be a pretty damn good idea. But if you're worried about the impact of the expansion and then the summer impact on the plex prices, which could result in maybe more supply and a little bit less demand for it, then of course, yes, it could be a good idea to wait out. One thing that I should note as well is that of course we had a clear pattern here of plex prices going down, and this bump here, you can attribute this to 1 billion ISK being the bottom. I think there's a good chance that it is that. One thing you should keep in mind here though is that at the very tail end plex are going down, and what is interesting is the big hubbub that happened just a few days ago, right, when this increase in price happened here, because CCP forgot to announce that the price of a BPO for the Keepstar, the largest citadel, is going to cost 1.2 trillion ISK and not 700 billion ISK. And so that is of course something that may have impacted this plex market here. Although personally I think that would have impacted it with more supply, more people saying, okay, I need my liquid ISK right now, so let's put some more plex on the market, sell them off so that we have our 1.2 trillion and can buy the Keepstar BPO. But yeah, it's probably something that will have had or could have a small impact on the plex price, I think, because all of a sudden all of the alliances planning to go for Keepstars, planning to be amongst the first to build them, will need another 500 billion ISK just to buy the Blueprint original. I can't wait for a kill mail with one of those in the cargo hold, but we'll see how that works out. Next up here we get the pilot training certificate, very similar chart of course, bouncing off of the 1 billion mark. No sign of it really falling flat or going back down a little bit at the tail end here, but yeah, wait and see. Honestly, it is risky, I think, to buy now, but it could be the bottom as well. That's up to you to decide. I'm not actually going to pronounce myself on this, but of course, multiple pilot training certificates following plex very closely. Then we've got the body resculpt here, hovering at 260 million. It's actually a pretty decent price for the body resculpt. You can also see that the volumes are pretty low though at the moment. I mean, probably just 2 or 3 just for this rise here. So I think that this market does show that it is something completely different from plex. You can see it going up here where plex went down, and I think it's very easy to manipulate this, although pretty risky because of the low volumes. So this one, well, I'm keeping it here because it is related to services that are related to just purchases with real life money, and so they are, I think, pretty important as a general barometer for EVE Onlline. And with the body resculpt certificates being pretty high in price, considering the entire chart, I would say a decent amount of people are actually resculpting and using these actively. There could be good demand, which could be a good sign for the health of the game. So I forgot these last week, I think, but skill extractors going down below 240 million, actually almost reaching 230 million, but now really trying to hesitate. So at some point, of course, it is going to stop going down. There is going to be a correlation between Aurum, plex, and the skill extractor. So this also mirrors the decrease in price from the plexes as well, and so the stalling here is at the exact same timing. Currently, of course, skill extractors, let's see what the sellers are at, 235 million, the buyers are at 230 million. Again, if this bottoms out as well, there is a good chance that plex will bottom out as well at this point. So it could be interesting if you don't have billions lying around to maybe go for a few skill extractors. One thing to keep in mind though, I think we'll see that the supply here is just really huge. Just look at that. All of this is still in just the last few hours really, and we're talking 104, 211, 105. So it is somewhat risky, but if you do aspire to the theory that this should correlate quite heavily with plex and you expect plex to bottom out, some skill extractors might be a good investment as well. And now we've got the skill injectors. Interestingly enough, these are pretty volatile, but at the moment they're going down in price slightly, a top at around 655 million. They are currently selling for 635 million and the buyers at 625 million. So I think that this is a pretty reasonable price. You can also see that this is a very active market. Just look at the supply here once again, absolutely huge, with a lot of 20s, 41 as the latest one. Volumes here, what are we talking about daily? Probably just a little bit under 10,000 skill injectors being traded every day. That's actually quite a pretty damn high volume for the skill extractors. Yeah, a little bit less than that. So it's not like everybody just buys this to use them right away. There's quite a bit of speculation and hoarding going on as well, I think, which does, I think, mean that these could have a pretty strong correlation to plexes, but the skill injectors are, I think, where you could do some speculative interesting things, of course. Why do I think that skill injectors could be a bit more prone to violent swings, as we're seeing here already? I would say that anything that CCP develops that could require new skill points, that could all of a sudden bring in new players, could have a really big impact on the skill injector market, because this is something that newbies will want to buy in order to get into certain ships and things like that. It's something that veterans will want as well, if there are some really interesting skills that are being developed by CCP and then come to TQ. So this is not as straightforward as the plex market and probably the skill extractor market, which I think will actually also very closely mirror the plex market. So we'll see how all of that works out, as I hear the chainsaw going in the background. But right now I think all the focus is going to be on, will this be the bottom? What's going to happen when the expansion launches? Next up we've got some minerals. Let's start that at 10:30. There we go. We'll start with titanium, that is going down substantially. If you look at this chart, keep in mind though, it's from 6.70 ISK down to 6.20 ISK, so it's not all that dramatic. It's just basically a healthy recovery after, well, big volume spike and a big increase in price. So I personally suspect that 620 could be the right price for titanium. If you look at the rest of the chart, it was at 630 a little bit, then we dropped down, big spike up on big volumes, and now just a recovery. I don't think that we are in for a crashing just yet. Supply demand could give us a bit of an indication. As you can see, what's interesting here is that people are starting to hesitate to bring even more titanium to the market. Here we've got a few new sell orders, 70 million, 90 million, not that much. On the demand side though, we've got almost a billion, more than a billion, 300 million. So yeah, at this point people aren't willing to just dump their titanium anymore. I think this could actually turn around a little bit, maybe go back up towards 630 in fact, if supply does remain this low at this price point. So titanium, I would say that this is just a healthy recovery after a really big spike in volumes here, which I would say is probably related to the war, the loss of some titans in build and things like that. These might need some replacing, and thus the buying of minerals. Next up here we've got pyrite. That does not look all too healthy. Last week we were here I think at 1070. We tried to claw our way back out, but we are on the way back down again, so it looks like 1070 may not be the bottom for pyrite just yet. What will it actually be? That's pretty hard to say. At the moment they are going for 1051 on the sellers, 1030 on the buyers, which is yeah, definitely lower here on the chart. So pyrite, looks like I was a little bit early with saying that this might be the bottom. We were at a 6-month low, but it's going to go even lower. What is the supply looking like? Yeah, despite the fact that we are at these low prices, people are still dumping 260 million and 103 million pyrite. The volumes in these few sellers are higher than the titanium volumes. That's completely crazy. And thus, of course, the price does go down. Next up here, we've got Mixalon. That's also, yeah, took quite a bit of a hit after an increase in price on, I would say, a few big volume days here. But it's trying to find a bottom. It looks like it broke 59 ISK, but I don't think it will want to go much lower than that. The sell orders here, they're trying to stay above 59. So there's just a few that are edging towards 59, but I don't think a lot of people will be willing to sell their Mixalon below that straight to the market. Unless of course demand completely dries up, then that barrier, that psychological barrier, I think may be broken. But 100 million here, 76 million, 56 million here, I think there is a strong chance that demand will actually manage to stall this decrease in price. But it's interesting to see that Mixalon actually dropped back off as well quite a little bit to a 6-month low once again. Next up here we've got Isogen, the final high-tech mineral, and that is really not a good chart. Last week we went down substantially, but now we are clearly at a 6-month low, heading towards 85 ISK here, 89.37 for the sellers, 87.67 for the buyers. Yeah, being able to just straight up buy Isogen from sellers below 90 ISK, I think is a really good price. If you look at this chart, this doesn't look bad either. Stocking up on Isogen here now for the longer term, I think is not a bad idea. But again, showing quite a bit of pressure on the high-tech minerals here. Next up we've got Noxium. That's not going to be pretty either, of course. One thing maybe I'm not sure if it'll still show up on, yeah, it does still show up on the 1 year chart, but this is just a clobbering of Noxium here. This one I think got basically the double whammy treatment. You can get Noxium decently well from some areas of HiSec, but you can get a lot of Noxium from nullsec as well. And with the mineral changes, Noxium actually took a really big hit because of oversupply happening just in general in nullsec, and it tried to hold on at around 480, something like that, for a long time, with a bottom at 460, but now that's just completely been broken. This higher volumes here triggered an increase in price, but just look at this all the way down here. That is definitely not good. So Noxium at a 1 year low, a very low 1 year low, and historically speaking, I don't think I've ever seen Noxium go for these prices. 430 for the buyers, 434 ISK for the sellers. Again, longer term, this may be a good idea to invest in, but if you want to absolutely time the bottom, that is very tricky to do. We had these fake bottoms here in Noxium at around 460 before, and so I sometimes hesitated and even said maybe this is a good time to buy a few. For the very short term, you may have made a little bit of money on these upswings, but now we completely just broke that barrier, and we're going down with no real signs of this stopping. So let's see what supply is looking like. Yeah, despite these prices, people are still bringing in 3 million units, 1 million units, 2.7 million units. Look at the buyers, 1.2, 1.6, 2.6. So the Noxium market is really in pretty damn bad straits at the moment. I think there's just oversupply coming from everywhere on this mineral, and for the very long term, you take a gamble, but again, just like with Isogen, maybe I should quickly take a look at the 1 year chart for Isogen as well. You can see that we've hit 95 before. This is not just a straight downward trend over an entire year, which has been the case for Noxium. Very bad situation for this market. And you don't want to be still mining this, trying to sell this. Especially not mine this, because it's just going to decrease your efficiency by quite a lot. I think I just straight up prefer to mine some Veldspar at this point, just for the titanium. So yeah, Noxium, 1 year low, all-time low, I would say, and just an extremely depressed market. But that is often the time when you can make the really good investments for the longer term as well. Keep that in mind. Next up, the nullsec minerals. We've got Zydrine here at just above 1000 ISK. I think this is more reasonable as an average price here. You can see the previous bottom at 900 was going quite low. Then we went back up to 1350, and now we recovered from that. But staying in between this, I think Zydrine could finally start to stabilize. You also don't see a huge oversupply situation or anything like that. That's going to depress the price even further. And demand, half a front page, 4 million, 3 million, something like that. A bit more demand than supply, which used to always be the case. It was really the sellers that tended to dictate the price in the HiSec minerals. We've been through a pretty rough ride, but I think there's a good chance that Zydrine will finally start to stabilize a little bit at this price range. Next up here we got Megasite, decently similar situation, although here we went close to 1000 and here we went close to 1050 ISK. So a pretty low price for Megasite, selling at 1090, buying buyers at 1040. But here you don't see all the crazy any supply anymore, except for one small sell order. So I actually think that Megasite is going to also start to hesitate here. And will this become its new price point? Historically speaking, 1100 ISK for Megasite I don't think is a bad price. And so yeah, I think this could finally start to stabilize a little bit. Finally, here we have Morphite. That is not good news for the Morphite holders. This is actually a chart that looks quite a lot like the Isogen chart here all of a sudden. Going towards 9,600 ISK here. I was pretty happy when you could buy below 10,000 ISK. Now the sellers are going for 9,568 ISK, the buyers at 9,430. Again, a very depressed market. I think that the demand just isn't there anymore. I suspect that a lot of the big players have just basically made their moves on the citadels, everything they need, maybe for the capitals and super as well. And as a result, here we have quite a few very depressed markets. More fights again at a 6-month low. It tried to hold on quite nicely at around 11,000 ISK here for a while. Then it started to go down, but now it's pretty damn drastic. And so personally, I'm seeing investment opportunities in these minerals. Interestingly enough, these are showing up. You've got the Morphite chart that looks really interesting. You've got the Noxium chart that looks interesting, and the Isogen chart as well. But again, calling it the bottom here at this point is pretty tricky to do. Could there be a correlation between all of this, especially the Morphite one, I would say, and plexes? I think there could be. That is maybe something to research a bit more later on. But interesting mineral market. Some of the easiest to get high-sec minerals are still doing decently well, and a lot of the other ones are doing really, really badly. Next up, Tech One chips. Let's take a look at those, 2040. And let's see if we can spot any trends here. We can spot the Armageddon going down drastically in price. So while it managed to stay here at 214 million for quite a while, we had extremely low supply of these. There were maybe 10 Armageddons available in the Jita market. This has now been crushed, and supply is starting to pick up. You can see that there's 99 and 33 of them coming in below 200 million on the seller side. We're finally starting to fill this page with Armageddon sell orders, and I would say that the dropping down of minerals probably has a lot to do with this. People are making more money on these battleships when they can buy the minerals at the moment compared to like a few months ago, and so now there's a bit more supply coming in because people want those profits on a downward market in the mineral market, I think. So yeah, more supply on the Armageddons going down in price. Personally, I think I'm quite okay with that because the battleships were decently expensive in the last few months or so. So I'm seeing this one as pretty good news. Here for the Caracal, after the big spike due to the war, we actually recovered, and we are once again going to go around 11.5 million ISK. Despite higher volumes, we're back in a normal situation. So I would say this indicates that supply can now easily manage all the demand that even the war asks of it. And as a result, it could be, of course, that if all of a sudden the war stops or something like that, or they switch to a different meta, that the Caracal market could find itself in an oversupplied situation. So be a little bit careful with this one, I would say, because that could happen. These big volumes have maintained for quite a while, and you can see that we're back at the normal price. So people are producing too many Caracals for a normal demand situation. Next up here, we've got the Dominics. Try to go down to 190, now coming back to 200. For a 6-month chart, this is not bad, right? Started at 200, a little bit above that, a little bit below that, but nothing too drastic. And right here, staying at 200 million. That's quite okay. This is how I like to see my my Tech One market, decently stable, and for the Dominics it's definitely a nice show of stability, availability as well, looking quite good. So I would say that the Armageddon here just stayed this high because no one was producing these. If the Armageddon settles back around 200 million, bring it in line with the other battleships, I would say it's definitely a possibility, and all of that will then probably be thanks to the lower mineral market. Here is the Drake, as you can see, also again breaking the trend. Average, you would say 55 million, a bit of volatility at the end here, but now probably on oversupply below 53 million. So the sellers are at 52.8, the buyers at 51 million pretty much, and despite that you can still see almost half a front page of new Drakes coming in, 27 of them. We're producing a little bit more than what is needed on this. Interestingly enough as well, I'm seeing slightly higher volumes here, probably due to the war, maybe a few Drake fleets coming through, but what I'm fearing for the Caracal market basically happens a little bit here in the Drake market. People overproduce this price spike here, and so we're actually going down below the averages by quite a bit, with some momentum and with still more Drakes coming to the market here. So be a bit careful of these situations, I would say, if you produce Tech One ships. Next up here we've got the Mauler. Also, yeah, some volatility, could be due to the war, but we're back at 11 million. Normal average availability looks pretty healthy here as well. So it's looking good. This here, November was, I think, the Mauler was a little bit late than the rest of the Tech 1 market, but there was a lot of volatility all of a sudden. The Tech 1 market being bought out, supply not being able to keep up with demand. I'm happy to see here now that, yeah, basically the Mauler is staying at 11 to 11.5 million, and these last few months, this probably due to the war. Maybe actually it's a little bit early for the war, but it's decently stable, right? It's not like we're coming from 50 million here, which is quite a high price for the Maulers. Next up here we've got the Myrmidon. Again, some volatility at the tail end, but now settling at 53 million once again, which is a little bit below, I would say, the averages here. So this is not as stable as I would like to see it personally, but starting at 56, ending at 53 is quite okay in my book. And again, availability, it is back. You know, when we had this shock to the Tech 1 market, a lot of these ships were basically empty. You had no supply here. It was something I'd never seen before. And it took us like 6 to 8 months now to basically absorb what happened there and come back to a more normal Tech 1 situation. Here we've got the Oracle. Also, again, you can see staying below 85 million most of the time. A little bit of volatility here, but nothing too drastic. And now maybe even a bit of oversupply as we head below 80 million. 81.1 for the sellers, 75 million for the buyers. This gives you a good idea of what it costs for an Oracle, and it's been that situation in the last 6 months. Pretty good chart. I like this one. Next up here we get the Raven, coming out here from the volatility, I would say. More than 200 million for a Raven is quite unusual, but now trying to find a price point of around 190, I would say. Again, price spike, a bit of an over supply situation, bring the price back down to 180 million, which is really cheap for a Raven, but opportunities like that, of course, don't last too long. You can see that there's not a lot of demand. Supply is quite decent, so of course any oversupply can quickly drop the Raven to very low prices, and then of course it's going to be investors that actually pick those up below 180 million, so they can resell them at like 190, something like that. So okay, the battleships are not really part of the meta, and so these have a pretty rough time. Some of them have high points here because of that, when no one is making these at all. Others have low points, like here with the Raven going below 180 million because no one is buying them. But yeah, keep in mind, of course, this volatility, that means that it happens on low volumes as well, which means that the amount of actual ISK being made on these Armageddons, look at that, look at these volumes, less than 30 a day. The amount of money being made on these high prices is pretty low. The risk you're taking is pretty high as well. So I prefer a more stable market like the Stabber, starting below 11.5, ending just below 11 million here. That's quite okay, right? I think if I go for a 1 year chart, here you can see the volatility happening. That was basically when something happened to the Tech 1 market that caused a huge disruption, but now we are back at the stable situation before that, between 10.5 and 11 million. It's good to see a more stable few months in the Tech 1 ships. Next up here we got the Tornado. Again, a little bit of volatility right here, but this first 4 to 5 months are decently stable around 76 million. Then big volume spike increase. The good news is immediate response, so the price goes back down immediately, and even a bit of oversupply because we broke 72 million on the downward trend. It's normal that a spike like this needs a bit more time to be completely absorbed, so here we went back up and now back down. But yeah, 74 million, something like that for Tornadoes at the moment, looks pretty good. Availability is important, but you can see that there are quite a few Tornadoes sitting on the market, which could help bring some more stability to the price here. Next up we've got the Typhoon, again starting at 190, ending at 175, so the Typhoon is again having a really rough time, probably due to the very low volumes here. So an increase in volume here increased the price to 190, which is basically just its average, but supply is too high. demand is not there. This is a complete reverse of the situation. You can see that there are typhoons in the market. No one is buying them. There is zero demand for typhoons. That means that any increase in supply all of a sudden can have a really big impact and crushing the price back down. So yeah, demand for battleships is basically evaporating. That is one thing I'm taking back from this EVE talk here for sure. Next up here we've got the Vexor, again good stable 4 or 5 months. A bit of a price back up to 14 million. Keep in mind that's not that huge. 2 million increase in price on big volumes, a few days of those, but then very swift response by the industrial guys, managing to plug that gap, actually breaking 11.5 million, so breaking the average on the downtrend. And then of course you need a little bit of time to absorb a shock like that, but we are right back where we need to be. So I would say this is looking pretty good for the Tick 1 market to show some stability. All of them have decent availability. The one category are the battleships. There's just no demand for them, so there is also extremely low supply, and that means that a sudden surge in demand could really impact their price, meaning that an increase in demand will definitely increase the prices very drastically because there's just no supply, but an increase in supply can really crush those prices as well. So yeah, that's it for the Tick 1 market. Next up, Tick 2, 31 minutes. It's gonna be a pretty long one, this one, I think. So let's start here with the Basilisk. On the Tick 2 market, I suspect that we are basically stabilizing at higher prices because of the war. So we can see quite a bit of volatility that we're coming out of. That was when the war kicked off. But now we are stabilizing at 200 million. You can see that we're nowhere near the previous bottom. So this will always remain risky unless I see something completely different from this. So the Basilisk settling at 200 million. Yeah, again, not low enough to really risk the investment, not high enough to say that you should get rid of Basilisks or produce them massively all of a sudden or anything like that. Next up here we've got the Cerberus, very similar situation. Start of the war, big fights happening, so this price goes up to 260 million, now recovering back to 210 million. But of course it's not the 180 that we would like to see the buyers at, 196. That's still too high to be certain of a good return on the next volatility phase. So I would say that this is pretty risky because we also don't really know where this war is going. Citadel is going to happen as well. This could cool things down quite a little bit. I would be very careful before risking trades in the Tick 2 market at the moment. Here we've got the Claw, still at 20 million. I mean, you could have probably bought them at 16 million on if you kept a close eye on these markets. So again, settling quite a bit lower, but still not really at the bottom prices. Next up here we get the Guardian. That one is actually going down pretty interestingly towards 135 million on the chart. So the buyers are at 132. This is something you could keep an eye on this to see the buyers drop below 130. That is definitely a good price if you look at the chart right here. Often triggering volatility of 15-20 million here all of a sudden. So this is almost interesting. If you see the buy orders go below 130, then the Guardian could be an interesting one to make your first move on. Next up here we got the Hound settling at 22 million, bottom at 17 million, so that's way too early to go either way. The Ishtar looked quite okay last week, going down to 165, but again, we can see here that we did go below 160 before, and it's already picking up here. So people are moving quite early, I would say, on these opportunities, probably because the rest of the Tick 2 market, of course, is in a very high place at the moment. Next up here we get the Manticore. Again, look where we come from, 20 million, spike up to 32. This is war related volatility. Actually, this volatility happened before the war and was a great opportunity for just some short-term trading, because you can see that the bottom went close to 20 million once again. The buyers did go below 20 million at this point, so this is really great, but now settling at 26 million, it's just too early in my opinion. The Nemesis, that's starting to be more interesting again. One data point close to 18 million. Where are the buyers at? 17.5. sellers at 18.5, so we are in an oversupply situation. But the nemesis for the longer term, you could risk that, I think, for some buy orders. So here you can again see 18 million has often been a trigger for some volatility, although it's not really the best chart when it comes to finding trade opportunities. You have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in an entire year, so it's somewhat risky, but the nemesis is starting to look quite oversupplied, and for the longer term this could be okay. Next up here we've got the Oneros also dropping back down to 145. Yeah, could be good. No demand whatsoever. So this again, yeah, this is one of those that is not settling at like 155 or anything like that. There is not a lot of demand for these. Buy orders at 144, so below 145. At this point, the Oneros could also be one if you have the ISK lying around and you want to risk some short-term trades. You know, if the war does pick back up, then you will have these volatile spikes once again. And then, of course, it would be good to have some Oneroses bought at 145 lying around. Next up here, we get the Purifier settling at 20. Again, too early to do anything there. We've got the Raptor here trying to head towards 20, but honestly, still a little bit too early in all likeliness. And then we've got the Scimitar, yeah, definitely above 140, so 120 was our previous opportunity. So yeah, there are a few of them, especially the Oneros with zero demand for these here. Well, not zero, but very low. That could actually be some early investment opportunities. You are, of course, gambling on maybe another big battle in the war, something like that. A final battle, honestly, could not be ruled out. So I think it's pretty damn interesting. On a few of them, if you do see the chart heading back towards previous bottoms from before the war. So interesting Take 2 market, honestly. There are a few opportunities. I did not expect that. I expected a lot of them to be at much higher prices than their previous bottoms. Next up, the Take 3 market, 36.30. All right. Let's start with the destroyers. So the Confessor tried to have a bit of a spike on big volumes, but that's been squashed by supply once again, and so now they are selling for 48.5 million, buyers at 45.5, and despite that we still see half a front page of new supply with 27, 29, 12. So yeah, crushed by supply. The Tech 3 market, even on higher volumes, is just a bit oversupplied at the moment. When will this bottom out? Hard to say. Here's the Hecate also slowly going back down as well, below 48 million, and despite that people bringing 107, 126 of them, 125 of them. Oh my god, all of this is below 48 million. So yeah, oversupplied for sure at the moment. Next up here we get the Jackdaw. Again, try to crawl out of this on big volumes, but it's being squashed quite quickly. What's the supply looking like? 102, 81. This is still in the last 24 hours. Here you get another 44, 15. It's not as bad as the other ones, but they're also going for below 50 million already in big volumes. So this is going to put more pressure on the Jackdaw. And then we've got the Zwepel also going below 50 million here on supply. Yeah, full front page of new ones, 62, 68, 10 of them. So yeah, Take 2 cruiser market oversupplied at the moment. At pretty low prices as well. For longer term, again, this could be decent to invest in, but who knows, of course. We've seen in the Tech 3 market a sustained oversupply situation for more than 2 years, actually, and so this is very risky. Next up here we've got the cruisers. Let's start with the Legion. Very similar situation, going down towards 150 on, yeah, look at that. More than a full front page of new legions being brought in despite these 6-month low prices. That does mean that we are indeed oversupplied. Next up here we get the Loki. Again, look at that, settling even lower all of a sudden here, 143 million, and despite that half a front, no, just not that many new ones, but of course 144 million for a Loki. We've seen higher, right? 195, 180 pretty easily, like 3-4 months ago, so that's not looking too good either. Here's the Proteus chart heading below 150 as well. Supply, demand is not there, supply, all of this is in the last 24 hours, so it's not in the hundreds like the destroyers, but it is definitely in an oversupply situation as well. So here we go, going down to 150, 151, 146. So if you want to fly Tech Tree ships, this is a great time to do so. If you want to stock up on them, this is probably a good time to do so, but that is pretty risky because we have seen something like this happen before, and it was very difficult for the Tech Tree market to claw out of it. It's really just the introduction of the crew, of these destroyers that has changed that dynamic. But if that has been absorbed by the Tech Tree industrialists by now, then this is very risky for the future. It's going to be interesting to see if the Tech Tree ships will come back in vogue all of a sudden, and if they could increase the prices. But the longer this goes on, the more oversupply you have, the harder it's going to be to actually crawl out of these 6-month low prices on practically all of them. That is pretty crazy. An entire Tech Tree market with 6-month low prices. Not what I expected 3 months ago, to be honest. And then finally, for the extra material, I'm choosing, nope, I actually wrote down advanced PI, so 4030 for that. And advanced PI, because of course next week we will get the Citadel expansion. So we'll see if maybe some of them, materials, planetary materials, advanced, have dropped back a little bit, and if we can spot any opportunities. Unfortunately, no. Broadcast nodes taking off on high volumes, so people are definitely, I think, becoming more and more exposed to the fact that yes, Citadels are coming and you need this advanced PI for it. So price going up quite drastically here. I was looking for maybe an investment opportunity, but no, people are just expecting this, and these markets are being watched like hawks. Here is the integrity response drone, try to come back a little bit, but now of course with FanFest, with the expansion closing, these are going up quite drastically. So you want to be ready basically by now. You don't want to have to buy a lot of them at this point anymore. Nanofactory, organic mortar applicator, the only one that doesn't really, despite higher volumes here, that hasn't moved up that much all of a sudden. So maybe if you think that there is still a big chunk of the player base that is not fully aware of what the Citadel expansion is going to bring, then maybe the mortar applicator could still be an opportunity to invest in at this point. It's quite risky, I admit that, but the fact that all of the other ones have now gone up quite a bit all of a sudden and these have not, I think it could be interesting. Next up we've got the computer model, again going to a 6-month high right here. Self-harmonizing power core just hovering at a 6-month high. Sterile conduits also working its way back up to a 6-month high, so you can see that the expansion is right around the corner. And then the wetware mainframes, they've 3.9 million for the sellers now. They are going to 6-month highs all of a sudden here, quite drastically on the increased volumes. These have been a bottleneck quite a bit. They seem to be pretty hard to produce and to bring to the market. So 4 million for wetware mainframes. What were they a year ago? 1.6 million, 3 times the price, something like that. Not bad, of course, if you invested at this point. But yeah, all of this will, of course, I think, slow down at some point, but it could be months because, of course, the Citadels are pretty big material sinks at the moment. So yeah, pretty interesting. Organic mortar applicators, if you want to still take a gamble on the expansion, this would be the one that could still make you some money. All the other ones, we are way too late, of course. Anyways, there you go, guys. I hope that we'll have a successful launch next Wednesday. I'm eagerly awaiting it. I've been doing quite a bit of preparation, but I think I'll maybe try and talk about that right before the expansion. But for now, that's it for EVE Talk. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next time.